Yes, so good morning for me and good afternoon for you, Kirby.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Okay, so today I'm very happy to welcome here Kirby Fling, the founder of Two Mind Method. Kirby
Hmm.
helps people heal emotional wounds, attachment patterns, and some subconscious fears that affect our relationships and inner peace. He combines psychology, neuroscience, and his own personal journey to guide others through deep transformation. He has a channel called Two Mind Method. So welcome, be really welcome here. I'm really pleased. Pleasure to
Thank
me
you.
to welcome
Thank
you
you
here
so
on my
much.
channel. I would like to kick off with the first question. Actually, could you tell us a bit about your personal journey and how it actually led you from background in computer science to Two Mind Method?
Good question. That's of course that's a long and sordid story, but it, maybe the way to describe it clearly is that once I go through a big emotional rupture, like the end of a marriage was a particularly big one. There was another relationship that was big, so I go through these big emotional ruptures, and then I'm like pain and misery and sadness and feeling like I'm a loser and all that stuff. And I start researching different psychological models. Actually, I do philosophy and spirituality first. And so I spent a year studying Taoism and a few other things. But then eventually I get into psychology and I begin to discover attachment theory, which was for the first time really started explaining stuff more than anything else. And then that led me to childhood development and kind of like the physiology, the neurophysiology of like the way we respond during stressful events. And in that, I'm reading these traits of someone who's basically in a physiological trauma response. And I'm just like, this is my entire childhood. The first 30 years of my life, probably more, are I've got all these traits, cold extremities, jittery nervous system, can't think straight, brain fog, humongously dramatic and volatile breakups of any capacity, friendships, work, relate, romantic, of course. And so when that happened, and I began to see clearly just what my childhood was and the path that I was on, and it was just like one traumatic breakup after another. I was like, well, of course, I don't want to keep doing this. I would like to understand this better. So I start looking for teachers, coaches, therapists, whatever, that would teach me something new. Started engaging with all sorts of alternate modalities. Some were helpful, some weren't. And then I just, over the course of that journey, I got closer and closer to secure. And then this grounded, stable, calm state where I live now, and I like it a lot. And then I said, well, I want to become that person that I needed when I was in my darkest hour, because it's like I remember what that felt like. I don't remember what I needed. And I didn't find it then. So it made the journey very difficult. And so that's what I try to do now for others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is amazing that you actually, what you went through, that you decided to help others. Do you think that it was always in you to try to help others, or did it just, come along, develop during your journey? Because your videos are very, very helpful, and this.
Thank you. I think I've always kind of had I've always had an aspect of me that's helpful, but of course, I look back now in the earliest days of my childhood, and I'm like, I have no idea how much of that was me and how much of that was a survival response. Like the messaging came into me from my environment, my parents, whatever, and said, You are only a good boy if you're helping someone." And I don't know. It doesn't really matter now because it's just like, do I do it, and do I feel good about it? Yes. Does it help me move my life forward? Yes. Am I seeing benefit in others? Yes. I'm like, okay, I've got all the traits I need to just continue on this path. And I do love teaching. Like I've been teaching various things for my whole life, dance, computer science, and English, and various other things. and I've always loved teaching. So it's just those two kind of come together, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is. I
Yeah.
mean, I had a long period where I was scared. I had a long period where I had, imposter syndrome and FOMO and other things. But once it really, I settled into it. I mean, I practiced, I trained to be able to talk to a camera. And so I train and train and train. And then once it actually settles in and I've got the skills and I've got the ease, then it was just like, oh yeah, this resonates with me in all sorts of good ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it really seems it has always been with you, the teaching bit. It's just that certain bits helped, and then you certain bits learned along the way, like speaking to the camera. Yes, I understand
Yeah.
the process. Yes, and then you say, "Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing." And just before we dive in a little bit into the psychological bit of what your mind to mind method is, which is just an amazing thing. I would like to know just a little bit more about you. You are currently living in
Oh,
Bali.
I'm in Bali. Yeah. I live
How
in
did you
Bali.
get there? How did it all happen? Tell us.
All right, that's another fun story. It seems to be like my MO, my modus operandi of traveling, which I only just seems to be I end up in places that I never planned. And so it's like here, Kenya, Turkey, Russia, there's only a few places I've been on Earth that I actually plan to go there. In this particular one, I was going through a particularly dramatic legal situation in America where a squatter had taken my house. That was kind of in the video that was really popular. Anyway, a squatter had taken my house. I was kind of moving around to various places, finding ways to live and survive. And but I traveled a lot, and I had a friend of mine that was basically exiting a toxic relationship, and she was just like, "I'm gonna sell all my stuff and move to Bali." And I'm like, "Cool, good for you. Like that relationship was no good for you." And she's like, "Well, I don't really want to travel by myself. Will you come with me?" And I'm like, "Well, I got nothing going on, so sure. I mean, I can work remotely." And so I'm like, okay, sure. And so we planned this whole trip. And the funny thing is that, like, we bought tickets, we're planning the various events and everything. And then I'm just like, well, what are we going to do in Bali? There's like, it's nothing there but a bunch of sandy beaches and like wooden bungalows out in the water. And she's like, dude, you're thinking of the Maldives. And I'm like, what? And I Google it. I'm like, oh, you're right. And I'm like, where are we going? Like, I didn't know what Bali was. It was not a thing for me. I didn't know. I'm like, Indonesia. I think I know where that is. And so I literally landed in Bali knowing nothing. And then I landed, and then we drive from the airport to the first Airbnb in the middle of the night, and I see all this stuff that I remember being the wacky stuff I saw on National Geographic when I was a little kid. And I'm like, is this that? I'm like, and I'm putting all the pieces together. The amazing dancing and the costume and all the architecture, and it really is amazing. And so that was cool. But then 1 or 2 days later, I ended up going for this really long walk, and then I was walking through the jungle by myself, and this feeling kind of descended on me that it was just felt like home. And I'm like, that's bizarre. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, this like cold, dreary. I mean, the summers are okay, but the rest, 9 months of the year, it's cold and dark. That's where I come from, and I'm like, why does the jungle feel more like home than the home does? But it did. I said, well, let's stick around, and I did, and then that was 3 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, I can tell you that this part is very, very inspiring. That's that is one of the best parts.
Oh, good,
Okay,
good.
fantastic. So yeah, you never know. So let's dive in into the to my method. Maybe
Okay.
I'll kick it off with the video that I saw from you. It was I'm not sure about the exact name you might recall, but it was about grieving the life that you didn't have. You were talking about. I just
Yep.
saw myself in it so much, just
Hmm.
grieving. I didn't have this, that I didn't have that, I didn't achieve that. Everything was cut off from me. And you just so nicely described it. And then
Oh,
you
thank
mentioned
you.
the two mind method. So maybe if you can explain about the two mind method and concentrate on maybe relationships, attachments, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so the To My Method is the name I came up for this process that I've been working on for the past 10 years. I mean, and it's kind of developed in many kind of different stages. And it really was like it was something, and I was noticing the something, and I'm noticing that there's patterns to the way we react, there's patterns to the way we heal, there's patterns to the way we respond to stressful environments, and it really began to reshape my understanding of what trauma is and how it impacts us and how we heal from it. Anyway, it was all like patterns and these other things, and I would go to social events and people start asking me questions. What do you do? And I'm still doing a little bit of engineering, but this is where I focus most of my time. And I would talk about it, and people are like, and they get curious. They start asking more questions, and before I know it, I'm at like some dinner party, and I have this like group of people like surrounding me, all taking notes. And they're like, "You should do a channel. You should teach people." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe. I'm so nervous," or whatever. So that was part of where the training came in. But the 2 Mind method is, the way I would describe it now is that it's understand that thinking of a human being as a single entity is probably a mistake. That we have, and if you think about yourself or any person you know, think about when they're calm, they've got enough food, they've got enough sleep, they've got the things that they think they want or need, and they're calm and they're regulated, and they can think about the future, and they can do math, and they can speak clearly, hopefully, and then they can plan for their retirement, whatever, right? They can do all this stuff. But now take that same person and put them in a situation where they're under-resourced, their stress from the past is channeling through them, they're super activated or triggered or whatever you want to call it. That's a very different person. And we can say, oh, there's one person and they're just being triggered, which I believe that for a long time. But once I shifted to this other idea, it's been far more fruitful, is that like, no, there's like a totally different system in there, that it operates differently. It has different motives, different hopes, different dreams. This is the subconscious of the inner child. And when it hijacks the system, it puts the smart guy, it puts the math guy to sleep. And now I'm just this dysregulated animal seeking survival. This is the fight or flight response, right? So first we start there and say, this is just a truth about the way it works. And then we say, okay, well then we now need to devise tools that will help that primal subconscious mind begin to respond differently to certain types of stress. And that's what the method is all about. It's like bringing the tools online when you don't understand what we're trying to do is a little bit less fruitful. So it's like, understand what we're trying to do. We're trying to help these 2 minds work together in the dance of healthiness. How do we do that? We have to bring certain tools to bear, and then we have to begin a practice, a training regime, really, that involves training my mind, training my subconscious into learning new information that will change the way that I respond to stress. And if you do that enough times over a long enough window, which is basically every day for 90 days, you will have a different response. And when you have a different response, you'll have a different life. And it's that. Yeah.
Well, yes, actually, I had this idea when you were talking for people who don't understand it yet, because I would say that 95% don't understand this process still. So then you might have 2 people who, one starts to behave differently under different circumstances, and the other one says, oh, he's a totally different person, he's a double-faced and all that, but
Yep.
it might not be the thing, it's just different response, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I have actually note here from what you had said, that actually subconscious is the one sometimes driving, yeah, when
Oh,
we
yeah.
allow it. If we allow it, it hijacks our
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. You cannot outwill the subconscious. Like the subconscious at the most fundamental level, the subconscious is the decider for survival responses. Like think of it this way. Like the subconscious never sleeps. and the subconscious is always has a finger on the button that says, I'm going to take over the whole system. Like, we have very limited ability to manage and regulate ourselves if we are in a fundamental state of panic or survival, threat of death or threat of destruction. So the subconscious is always doing one thing. It's always, all of its actions, all of the things it does, all of the emotions that it provokes, everything is all in service of one goal. And that is, how can I assure that this organism, this body, mind, everything, how can I assure that this organism survives until tomorrow? And once we look at it through that lens, a lot of things start becoming super clear. It's like all roads lead back to safety and survival. Like, everything I do, every emotion that arises, every activation, every trauma response, every toxic pattern I use in relationship always comes back to the same thing, which is just like, in some way, that emotion, action, belief, whatever, is believed by my subconscious to be helpful for my survival, to ensure my safety, and so that I can be alive tomorrow. And then, so from that viewpoint, like, that's the belief that I believe is true. And then I work with a client or a group or whatever. That's my job. My job is to help them detangle all these experiences that they're having, so we can find the threads that say, oh, this thing, this misery that you're feeling right now is because of this belief, and that belief somehow goes back to your subconscious believes that that's going to somehow keep you safe. And once we do that, we're like, oh, okay, well, then now we know where to do the work. Now we know where to do the training and the reconditioning, really.
Yeah. Kirby, how does this relate to the internet is flooded with Carl Jung at the moment, and he's really inspiring. So how does this relate with, we should really know, we should realize it, this should be taught everywhere. We have many personalities inside us. We have, the archetypes, different types of, they call it like a garden, different types of people or entities speaking in us at different types of situations. So how does that actually relate to how we could better understand ourselves and to move forward, maybe?
Good question. I'm a big fan of Carl Jung. A lot of my stuff is inspired by his work, or like works in, I mean, like, he's really the master. And so I take some of his ideas and I weave it in, just because I believe what he's saying to be true. This idea of like the archetypes, the wizard, spy, I don't even remember what they are. Those don't really resonate with me. Those don't really feel like they have traction. To me, they don't feel like they're beneficial. They feel like they're labels. I'm really not a fan of labels, because labels distract the mind. Labels give us something that's like, oh, here's a word, here's an assessment, here's a classification. And it's like, oh, am I green or am I blue? Am I a wizard or am I a goddess? Or am I, this kind of thing. And those are all concepts. It's all conceptual stuff. See, that lives up here in the upper mind. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people. It's like, we don't have access to the subconscious mind. We just, very, very limited direct access. It's like we can kind of construct things around it and then influence it in some ways, but we can't just like go in there and say, hey, you believe you're bad, I'm going to tell you that you're good. Like, we don't have that kind of access because of the way the memory systems work. So what I do is, it's like, the only tool I have is the conscious mind and language. And so we sit here and we talk in the conscious mind and we discuss things. But the purpose of all of it is to help you develop tools, practices, like visceral practices, that will begin to influence the subconscious mind in a way that we think is in alignment with the direction we want to go, right? So am I a wizard? Am I a sorceress? Whatever these archetypes are. I'm like, let go of all that. Maybe that's useful for something else, I'm not sure. But for me, I'm going to ask one question. What are you so damn afraid of? And start there. Are we anxious? Are we avoidant? Are we secure? Are we INFP? Am I a Capricorn? I don't know. Like, to me, I mean, I spent time with all that stuff. Like I went through all these different modalities and I spent time with all those things. I don't feel like they're beneficial. The thing that's beneficial is the moment that I sit here and I connect with an emotion inside me that is uncomfortable and terrified. And it's like, that's the thing that will change my life. That's the thing that will change your life, is just like, here is something that I'm holding, that I'm in touch with, that I'm feeling viscerally. It is like flowing through my body. I am having a physiological reaction to it. And it's like, that's what being triggered is. That fear controls us. If you fear a thing, that thing controls you. And so, do I want to spend the rest of my life being controlled? Do I want to spend the rest of my life being enslaved to a fear of public speaking, or a fear of abandonment, or a fear of feeling like I'm not good enough, right? It's just like, do I want to spend the rest of my life enslaved? I don't. So I need to work on finding those insecurities, uprooting them, bringing them to the surface so that they can be accessed, resolved, dismissed, discharged, actually. That's what I want to focus my effort on. And it's like, do that every day, again and again and again and again and again. And then 3 months later, you're going to notice your life is different. And 6 months later, you're going to notice your life is even more different. And a year later, you're going to be like, I'm different. I'm totally different than the person I used to be, because all these things that used to cause reactivity are just not there anymore. And then we can talk about, okay, what's your archetype? What's your astrological sign or whatever? At least that's my belief.
Yes, I think that these labels, for me at least, in my own experience, are helpful at certain stages. For example,
Mm-hmm.
when you start to be interested in psychology, then okay, yes, we have
Mm-hmm.
labels, and then as you go,
Yeah.
then you have to drop the labels. Was very how to say. I would like to tap on the subject of attachment or
Mm-hmm.
relationships, and perhaps all the video that you mentioned about letting go the life you didn't have. Could we dive into it a little bit deeper for the listeners,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps with a story, or how to let go of a fear or attachment? If you have anything that could really,
Mm.
hmm,
Well, I can talk about the fundamental premise of attachment theory, like in the big sense, or we could talk about the specific mechanism you use to like change a fear. Like, is if either of those interesting?
yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
We don't have all day, so
Right.
whatever you say will be great.
Okay. So, this just came up in a class I was teaching this morning. Like, there's a lot of information on the internet right now about attachment styles and about anxious and avoidant and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I want people to know that attachment theory is way, way bigger than that. And you can think of it this way. Attachment theory is the way that we determine whether or not I'm safe or threatened in any given situation. And so you can go all the way back to in utero, like before the child is even born, that organism is forming in a situation that is safe. You know, they're fed and they're warm and they're held and everything else, right? It has all these markers of safety, but then that baby is born into the world severed from the source of safety, and then now they're in chaos, right? There's sounds and lights and everything else. It's just like, oh my God, all this stuff is scary. And then you take that child and you give it close to the mother, and they hear the mother's heartbeat, and they're like, oh, I heard that heartbeat when I was developing in this womb of safety. This is now a safe place. And then the whole rest of mother and family and everything else, what we call the attachment constellation, kind of resolves from this one point of safety. But anytime they have a negative experience, because of the developmental stage of that brain says like, this is unsafe. And so a quick example is like, you know, babies in the high chair, some uncomfortable sensation is arising inside them, which we as adults might say gas or hunger. But to that baby, they don't know. They're just saying, Mom, come tell me that I'm going to be okay. And so the baby makes noise. The mother comes around the corner. She's just like, she looks at me. I look at her, and then she's got this box up to her ear, and then she turns around, she walks away and slams the door. Well, the baby just learned, if I am feeling discomfort and I make noise, she will leave me. And it has something to do with this box, and it has something to do with that door. And that's the way that procedural brain works, the procedural memory system works. It's like all these things happen at the same time, they're connected. And so I would call that an example of the original attachment wound. That attachment wound is that, like, if I speak out, now we'll take that baby and move them forward 20 years, that baby will have a difficult time speaking their piece, expressing themselves, saying no, having a boundary, like, because there's a core belief inside that says, if I cry for help when I'm feeling discomfort, someone I really care about is going to walk away and slam the door. So I'll probably be very sensitive to door slamming. I'll be very sensitive to abandonment or rejection. I'll be very sensitive to, you know, someone looking at their cell phone when I'm trying to have a meaningful engagement with them, right? This is what attachment theory is. Attachment theory is this idea that, like, these core events that happen in the first 24, 36 months of life create a lesson, which then forms into a belief. That belief gets kind of installed as truth, even though it's not. And then that person operates their entire life believing this thing to be true. And then that will literally influence every aspect of their lives. What we call an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style is really just a kind of a rough collection of behaviors that have associations with people that we're labeling anxious, right? But if you go underneath the behaviors, you realize that there's these fears underneath. It's always fear. It's all roads lead back to safety. And so that's where we do the work. We do the work if we want to change our life, we want to change our relationships, we want to change our, you know, sense of felt happiness and well-being in this world. We have to look at our behaviors, deduce from our behaviors what the core fears are. Then we have to dig down, find those fears, get in touch with them, which means I actually feel them. I'm not talking about them. I am talking as they happen. And then I develop a program that will, A, discharge the emotional payload, which is somatic kind of approach, and then B, it will be like, I will begin a process of reconditioning those fears so that they go away. And that's kind of like my quick summary of like what attachment theory is. It's far, far bigger than just anxious and avoidant. It is literally like how this person achieves safety at the subconscious level.
Mm-hmm. That is so deep, so profound. And imagine these moments of the baby, you know, 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times. There are so many that you can't even track.
Right. And humans are not perfect, right? But at no point, in fact, everything I do is about protecting. The goal of everything I do is in service of one goal, and that is protecting the next generation of children from attachment wounds. And the best way we do that is we create environments where every mother is like completely fully resourced and well versed in what's going on, and their own nervous system is capable of, you know, regulation on demand. It's a totally ideal environment. Okay, well, now how do we do that? It's like, well, now that means we need to create an entire pool, a kind of bubble, a container all around that mother that basically facilitates her being in this ideal state as much as possible. And that means we need the fathers and cousins and family and culture and everything else all working together to support that mother. You know, why am I talking about the mother? Because studies show that the number one indicator of a child's well-being is the quality of the mother's happiness. There's like nothing else even comes close. And so it's like, if that's the way it works, then what we should be doing to help the future, to build a better world and healthy children and everything else, is do everything we can to make sure the quality of the mother's happiness is the best it could possibly be. And that's a group effort. That's a team job. And I'm on board for that. And that's the thing that I do here, is try to educate people on attachment style and these dynamics and how to grieve, because unresolved grief is huge.
It is.
There's one study in the book, just a second, there's one study in the book that I quote all the time, where they gather up all these new mothers and they give them a test for it. They give them a rating for its unresolved loss and trauma. So it's basically they've been through a major loss and they've been through traumatic experiences in their life. And the question is, how much is that pain and difficulty been resolved? And women that score, or these new mothers that scored exceptionally high, like in the highest percentile of meaning they have a lot of unresolved loss, they have a lot of unresolved trauma, like the emotions around these difficult moments are still brewing in their system. Those children of those mothers were 87% more likely to have a disorganized attachment style. 87% to have basically the most difficult of the attachment styles. And I don't remember the exact percentage, but there was a very high percentage that ended up with a cluster B personality disorder. And that's just that to me, I'm just like, that's a clear indicator that like we need to intervene soon, quick, be on point, and help people resolve their grief, resolve their trauma, regulate their nervous system, and be just like the best version of themselves, so they can be present during the formative years of children.
That is so much something that the society should be focused, but the society seems to be doing the opposite, is to break the woman, break the mother, break the families. So here we go.
Here we go. So it's like, luckily there's some really beautiful and just superheroes in this field, like Erica Komisar and Lisa Feldman Barrett and a bunch of others. And it's just like, and they're singing the song and they're getting it. It's change is happening. People are being convinced because they're looking at their own lives. They're looking at the lives of the children around them. They're looking at kind of like the society in general, at least in America where I'm from. And they're saying, this is not the path we want to be on. We want something different. What's going on? And then luckily we've got 50 years of attachment research. We've got super smart people and eloquent people out there sharing the same story. And it's, in my opinion, it's just, if we don't implode, right? If we don't implode economically and all the other nasty ways we can implode, if we stay solvent as a society and a culture and, a race, human race, then I think it's just a matter of time before we figure out that the best possible thing we can do for everything, like decrease crime, better electorate, better political systems, everything, the best possible thing we can do is focus the majority of our energy on how to support mothers and the raising of children.
Wow. That is so true. And, many. All right. So, we had a little break. So we've been talking about the mother's regulation and presence, that it can support the child, the emotional health of the child. Now, I suppose that majority of the population doesn't have this kind of regulation. Could we just tap into the subject of attachments more? Why people end up in so many dysfunctional relationships? Is it something to do with projecting oneself? For example, I project myself onto somebody that can fulfill my lack of presence of mom or something. Why do we end up in so many?
Yeah, that's the theory, and of course, it's all theoretical. We don't actually have a viewpoint into the brain, but they get the theory as robust as possible, and then they test it, and like everything seems to be pointing in the same direction. So I think the theories are pretty durable. But yeah, the theories are basically like we choose people, like it's before the choosing, we have attraction for people, and the attraction is something that arises from the subconscious. And so the subconscious is seeing elements about this person, or it's projecting, anticipating solutions to wounds. You know, like I have a wound inside, they look like they're going to be the answer to that wound. And because the subconscious is basically the seat of emotions, it will literally create very strong attractive energy towards people before I even have a conscious choice. And that's super interesting. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I just find that super interesting. I don't know how many people, if anyone's figured out a way to really test that robustly. But again, I operate under that assumption and it seems to play out. So here we are at the very beginning. You meet someone, your subconscious sees something, and it says they have, it's kind of some different traits here. It's like they have something I wish I had. Like I'm shy, they're outspoken. Oh, I wish I was outspoken. And it's kind of this weird, theoretically, it's this weird way the subconscious is trying to basically reach a state of wholeness. Or they're just like me in the sense that like they have the same fears or they react the same ways. And so that feels comfortable, familiar, safe, which is, you know, coming from the past. Or they feel like emotionally, they feel very similar to either mother or father. Mm-hmm. Not in the sense that like, oh, this person feels like a mother, but it's like the way that they're unavailable, like the kind of feeling I get when they're not quite present and they're not quite available for me feels very similar to the way I did when I was a young child and mom was not quite there for me. It's like those two things feel the same. And when that feels the same, the subconscious will like turn up attraction energy really high and say, go chase after that person because they are the solution. They're the conclusion of this wound that I have inside me that's not resolved. They are the resolution of the wound. They're not. It doesn't work that way. But the subconscious seems to act like that is. And that's kind of the attachment approach to attraction and why people get in relationships. We're choosing people that are enough like mom or dad that the subconscious thinks that we can actually resolve the wound.
That is something that you hit the nail. Say, so is the consciousness actually helping us in this moment to, let's say, is the subconscious interconnected with some higher self or let's say soul that can actually, by meeting this person, create a problem at the same time a solution, or is this just a problem that that this attraction is causing us if we do it unconsciously, the choice?
That's a good question, and that's actually getting into spirituality and kind of metaphysics that I've had very spiritual experiences, but I don't integrate those into my teaching because it's just so many question marks. So it's like if you're a person that believes in higher power and predestination and that kind of stuff, then like, yeah, there's a very strong argument here that says like we are going to choose people that aren't good for us until we figure out how to stop choosing people that aren't good for us, right? But from like a more like a less spiritual approach, I would say that like if I don't want to use the spiritual approach, I've still got an answer, which is just like I'm terrified. I have fear inside. What's the fear? It's like the fear is being in a situation where I will never be chosen, like living my life never feeling chosen, never feeling wanted or prioritized, living my entire life with that open wound coming from mother or father still inside me and never getting resolution. And so my subconscious will create a lot of compulsion to resolve that wound. It will. And what does this look like? What does it feel like? Most people hearing this will know what I'm talking about. The moment that you meet someone and you have a couple of interactions with them, and then you have this incredibly powerful energy arising inside that makes you think about them, makes you dream about them, makes you want to call them. I want more, more, more. And then when they come and they offer validation, like I choose you, then the pleasure that happens internally is so incredibly big that it's just like, oh my God, what do we do? It's like it's like being high on drugs, because it is being high on drugs. It's just being high on endogenous drugs. And so that's what I call a state of euphoria. And I believe that that's totally a trauma response. Like that kind of pleasure you get at the beginning stage of a relationship. It is, you are showing signs of a dysregulated nervous system. And it's like, if you got a dysregulated nervous system, why? What's going on here that causes your nervous system to go into such a state of activated energy because you're literally standing in front of a stranger? Do we know that that person is the answer to my wounds? No. What I know is that they're a stranger. What I know, I know actually very little about this person, but my subconscious has, as you say, projected all this solution, all this good stuff onto them, and be like, oh my God, it's amazing. And the connections are phenomenal and the sex is great and blah, blah, blah. And then, 2 or 3 weeks later, or maybe 2 or 3 months later, we realize that that's a whole complete human being with flaws and, disagreements and things that don't align. And there are some people that spin in this kind of euphoria loop that when that happens and that person turns out to not be the dream man, dream woman that they wanted them to be, they feel betrayed. They feel wounded. They feel offended. They say, oh, how dare you change? Like you were just a blah, 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 list of labels. You were just a nasty person the whole time. It's just like, no, they weren't. They're just a human, and we project onto them this savior role. And when they can't live up to the projection, as none of us can, then they crash, and then the whole base of the relationship is a mess. Don't do that. Don't do that. I'm saying that as someone that did it 1,000 times, so it's like, oh yeah.
It's so true. I have a few examples of people who came and said, after 20 years, there was a friend of mine, and he said he divorced after 20 years, and he said, I didn't know who I was living with after 20 years. Maybe they have realized it before, but I
Right.
don't know who this person is at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes. So, yes, these are projections, attachments, and how can we? I lost the question. Maybe you can help me.
Okay. Well, I mean, the kind of question, it's the thing I ask. Almost all my videos get to a point where I say, well, okay, if that's the nature of the problem, what do we do about it? And what do we do about it is the answer is pretty similar most of the time, at least the themes. What do we do about it is I have to go inward. And it's like, stop putting my solutions outside. I have to turn inward and I have to say, what the heck is going on inside me that puts me that drives my entire mind, body, nervous system, everything, drives me into a state where I behave like that. And it's just like, there's something inside me that made that happen. What is it? And most of us don't want to see it. We don't want to do that work. I sure didn't want for a long time. And so what do? We numb out. This is what addictions are. This is the addiction angle, or what I call numbing agents. It's like, I don't want to put the time or effort into taking accountability for creating this world, this situation that I find myself in. And so I just numb out and I find a way to distract myself. It's like Netflix or, swiping or working out, food, whatever. Okay, so don't do that. Don't numb out. Get very, very real and say, what is it that's happening inside me that makes me drawn to this situation? What is it about that seems so great? And then that's a whole field of exploration and detective work, which is mostly what I do in one-on-one sessions. It's kind of help people do that detective work. But it's even more fundamental than that. We can say, why are you pursuing a relationship to begin with? Like,
Great question.
what is your goal here? What are you trying to accomplish? Now, if your goal is to be like, I just want to have some fun skin contact, fool around hookup thing, that's fine. I'm not going to judge that, but be upfront about it. Be very clear, because if you bump into someone and their goal is like, I'm looking for a long-term life partner to build a family with and everything else, you guys are not aligned from the very first moment. And this is, I really just shot a video about this last night. It's like, if you know that you're going to be fundamentally incompatible with that person, wouldn't you want to know that right away? Wouldn't you want to know that as soon as possible? But people don't do that because they're not vetting. They're not in tune with what they're actually looking for. They're just looking for happy, pleasurable moments. And then they go into the dating process, they find someone, they connect, and then they have feel-good emotional experiences. They say, oh, this is good, we're meant to be, or this is my person, or whatever. And you're like, but you're fundamentally incompatible. That's going to lead to a lot of stress.
This could actually be the case when we are so influenced from childhood. Let's say that it could be that case by all the romantic movies that kind of stucks in us that we must be in relationship. This is the thing to do, to be, and plus all these attachment theories,
Yeah.
dramas, and we are always seeking for a person. And I think maybe if I'm right, let me know. The final point in our personal development is to actually question whether I actually need to find a person to be happy, whether it can
Yeah.
come without it. It might come the relationship one day, that the right relationship for me, but shouldn't the starting point be to choose myself first?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. Is it the end point? I don't know, but like I know that it's a very beneficial point, and it consistently. Now, what does that mean? That means that like I have cultivated a beautiful, rich, deepening relationship with myself. What does that look like? That's when you're deep in the insecurity, which I was for years and years. I would hear people say that and be like, what do you even mean? And that's a very difficult thing to kind of explain, but we can get there. To be in a position where I know who I am, okay, that's even challenging. I know what my goals are. I know the direction I want to go. I know what I want, what I don't want, or at least I can move in that direction. But the main thing is that like the fundamental craving of the attachment system is that I want to feel as a sensation that I am wanted, that I'm chosen, and that I'm prioritized. For a young child, wanting to feel wanted, chosen, and prioritized by their mother is completely appropriate. But if I'm an adult and I'm with a partner and I can only have a good day when I'm wanted, chosen, prioritized by my partner, well, now I'm in a dependency dynamic. Now, if that partner doesn't show up in a specific way at the specific time that I demand, I'm going to be miserable. And then that trickles down the way, right? Earlier we're talking about the quality of the mother's happiness. If the mother is dependent upon other people for her emotional well-being, that can be a problem, because what happens when those people don't show up? So cultivating a relationship with self is to say, I feel so good about who I am, and I feel so confident, even though I'm imperfect, even though maybe I'm not as attractive as the next guy, maybe I'm not as successful as that person over there, whatever, right? I don't have as many followers, I don't have as many whatever. Even though that is true, I'm here and I'm okay with it. Every day, this is me with a little picture of myself. Every day, in every way, I choose you, little kid inside, instead of them over there.
Yes. Yes,
Most
that
people
is wonderful.
Most people don't know how to do that. They're so busy choosing others, making sure other people are taken care of, caretaking their emotions, everything else. Like they're so externally focused that they don't even know how to go inward and say, I'm going to give you the kind of love and tender affection and care and prioritization that you've been craving your whole life. And you do that for a while, and it takes a while because it's a skill. That's a skill, just like everything else. You develop that skill, you get good at it, and then your life changes. And now I've got exercises that I use in the Two Mind method to help facilitate that. There's a ideal parent figure meditation that I teach on the channel. There's a fear rectification approach. There's this whole other thing about finding meaning and purpose in life. And there's a few others. But like these are tools that we use in pursuit of this goal, is to help that attachment system move towards secure, help that person build a deepening, robust relationship with self, so that, right now this isn't the end point, That's the beginning point. The beginning point is like, yeah, I'm awesome right here, which means I don't need you. I don't need you to come complete me. I choose you. Now, that's a huge difference. A person that's in a state of attachment panic will be desperately clawing for someone to come complete them, for someone to come stand at their side, for someone to come validate them and say, you're worthy, you're chosen, you're wanted, you're prioritized. And that person is in a state of desperation and dependency, which means we don't even know. You don't even know. Like if that's you, this was me 10 years ago. I don't even know if I love that person. When I really get down to it, I'm feeling all these feelings and I'm saying they're my person and I'm saying I'm in love, but I look back on it now and I'm like, I don't even know if I love that person, or I was just, my attachment system was using them as a placeholder so that I did not feel alone. Oh, wow. That's like a,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Like that's me. But when I go through this process and I develop a better relationship with self, I'm like, oh, I'm here, I'm cool, I'm grounded, I'm stable, I'm secure. That means I get to choose someone, which also means I get to not choose them. I don't need you, I choose you. And then that two people that are in that state and they choose each other, they've got green flags all over because they can keep choosing each other over and over and over again. It is not basically a compulsion. It's not an addiction. People that are in relationship because they are addicted to validation have consistently negative outcomes. And we don't want that.
Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying this situation, this whole thing. And when we choose ourselves, and lots of people like bringing the spirituality into it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they don't even call it spirituality. It's just that they operate with, let's say, like meditations, light
Mm-hmm.
meditations.
Mm-hmm.
They clear with different ways, means, channels, etc. So that also works. I can confirm that. So there are a variety of things, and to understand the psychology that you just explained is fundamental. And so thank you for that. And I just want to maybe close our conversation
Mm-hmm.
with the fact that even though we become whole, let's say almost whole, we realize that we
Mm-hmm.
actually choose ourselves. The right person may not always arrive because we do not expect that anymore. It may or it may
Yeah.
not, but we are whole.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah. Very much. Very much. But I mean, it's wacky the way this works is because yeah, I reach a state of grounded, secure wholeness in myself, which means I'm not desperately craving or seeking partnership all the time. But the consequence of that is that like I'm sitting here living my life and I'm really shining my brightest brightness, which means there's people coming towards me, right? It's like it's this weird thing that like when you're in that state of desperate craving for completion, people can say low energy, low vibration, whatever, but it's just like it's fundamentally unattractive. Like nobody wants to be in that situation where they're around someone who's desperate and needy. But you come to a place of wholeness, you don't have that anymore. That means you got to be the rock star on the stage and just be doing your thing and saying like I'm living a great life and this is cool. And then it's like, oh, what? You're interested in me? Well, who are you, right? And then I get to choose them. I get to vet them. I get to go through the whole process of figuring out who they are. Do they align with this beautiful life that I'm living? Yes or no? And if it's a yes, great. We got all sorts of green flags.
But the trick
Makes
is
sense
to
to me.
not to notice it that you are the rock star, because if you noticing it, you're still
Yeah.
observing yourself. So it has to be completely authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't think of myself as a rock star. I mean, this is ever since my YouTube channel really took off. It's like, yeah, I have times where people meet me and they treat me like I'm a celebrity, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, like I'm just a nerd in a room shooting videos about something I'm passionate about, and like now you're treating me like I'm a celebrity? Like what? And it's just like I don't. It's cool. It's not. I mean, it builds good friendships,
Yes,
but it's like
I'm also calling it like I'm hiding behind a stone. It doesn't. affect
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. It's just like the whole thing could go away. I could like no one could ever recognize me again, and that's fine. I would still be sitting here doing what I'm passionate about and loving it. And it's just like so. I mean, as long as I can keep the lights on, it's great.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Kirby.
You're
It's
very
been
welcome.
fantastic conversation. I
Thank you.
enjoyed
Thank you
it so
so much.
much. I really send greetings to you to Indonesia.
Thank
You
you.
have
Thank you.
about like maybe 2 o'clock to 2:30 now,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's morning here. I hope to have you here back again sometimes.
I would love to. Love to. It's been a real
I'm
pleasure.
inviting listeners at the moment to write down some questions for Kirby. I
Yeah.
will collect it and let you know, and soon we might meet up again.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Okay.
Have a
Great.
great day
Great.
and bye bye, Kirby. Bye bye. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye. Bye.
Tak ahoj, jsem tu zase zpátky. Tak právě jste slyšeli pana Kirby Fling. Seznámila jsem se s nimi díky tomu, že jsem jej kontaktovala pod jedno z jeho videí. A to video se jmenovalo Grieving the life you didn't have, to znamená něco jako smutnění po životě nebo lítost nad životem, který si neměl, jo, nebo který si prostě nemohl mít. A to mě tak zaujalo, bylo to takové psychologicko-spirituální, takové zvláštní. A on tam mluvil o vlastně tom, jak spousta z nás si přála docílit spousty věcí a nikdy toho nedocílila, nebo jenom částečně, nebo úplně jinak. A spoustu věcí, co jsme si přáli, tak se nám nedostalo. Ale my víme své, že jo? My víme, že nakonec dostaneme přesně to, co potřebujeme. No ale protože na této zemi se nachází tak široké spektrum lidí, že spousta lidí nad tím smutní třeba celý život. A on to tam rozebíral a potom mluvil o tom na konci, že vlastně nejlépe je to přijmout. Něco tam kolem toho říkal, přijmout to a aby člověk vešel do své síly. A potom najednou se všechno otočí a člověk vlastně má tu sílu všechno dělat, otočit vlastně. A takže já jsem jej kontaktovala pod tímto videem, on se mi ozval a pardon, já jsem se ho zeptala, jestli by neměl s námi rozhovor, protože já jsem zrovna procházela obdobím, je to tak před tím měsícem, kdy ještě tu mám nachystané poznámky, spoustu poznámek, kdy jsem chtěla zmínit věci z hlediska psychologického a právě toho traumatu, připoutanosti a archetypů a různých těchto věcí. Mám tu takové schéma určité, vnitřní dítě, vyléčení vnitřního dítěte a tak dál, protože jsem cítila, že toto je velké téma, že tomu se taky musíme věnovat. Není to jenom o vznášení se na růžových obláčcích a duchovnu, i když to je to obrovské, to je právě to, co pročistí. A když se k tomu člověk dostane, já bych řekla, že to je ta velká zelená míle už. Ale je prostě potřeba mluvit i o té psychologické stránce. Takže on vlastně zrovna do tohoto období spadnul a já jej kontaktovala a domluvili jsme si právě rozhovor. Tento rozhovor jsem skoro týden překládala, samozřejmě tak obden a tak, jak to šlo. A to je to, co jste právě teď slyšeli. Takže my si tu řekneme pár bodů od z tohoto videa a vlastně z toho, co pan Kirby dělá. Tak on vlastně, to už tam bylo řečeno na začátku videa, že prošel obrovskou škálou různých zranění, traumat a dysfunkčních vztahů, až toxických vlastně, tak to doslova řekl. A všechno vlastně to bylo špatné. A tak se rozhodl, že na sobě bude pracovat a navštívil různé, já nevím, třeba pomocníky, terapeuty, všechno možné vyzkoušel a nic nefungovalo. A tak se do toho ponořil sám a začal hodně číst a začal si spojovat spoustu věcí. A tou spoustou věcí je vlastně výsledek jeho vlastního výzkumu, průzkumu, kde potom začal mluvit s lidmi na různých přednáškách nebo na party nebo na setkáních, nebo tak, jak to říkal, prostě všude možně. A tam se zjistilo, že lidé mu velmi naslouchali, protože on je i jako velmi dobrý učitel. On tam říká, že miluje učení a tím pádem vlastně má charisma, kterým i zaujme lidi a ti mu velmi naslouchali a on to navíc velmi, velmi miloval. Velmi se mu to líbilo. Takže ano, takže Kirby má tedy nějakou tu, neříkám, že to je značka, to je jeho takový název, který tomu dal Two Mind Method, neboli možná metoda dvou myslí. A v podstatě to znamená, my si tu jenom jakoby rychle tak jako prohopkáme to, o čem to je, a potom si řekneme nějaké věci, co mě osobně zaujaly z toho videa, vytáhneme. Takže v podstatě ta two mind method znamená, že každý z nás má dvě mysli. Jako takhle, podle psychologie a tak, opravdu podle Junga, prostě takhle to vnímají, že máme podvědomí a vědomí, že jo, to my víme. Říká se, že vlastně vědomí je jenom takový ten rožiček toho ledu nad té kry. A ta velká, obrovská samotná krása ten zbytek se skrývají pod povrchem oceánu, jo, pod tou vodou. A to je to podvědomí. A to podvědomí v podstatě řídí náš život, řídí naše reakce, řídí i naše životní funkce, že dýchání, mekání, prostě všechno, tlučení srdce a tak dál. To už je řízeno prostě těmi podvědomými nebo nevědomými složkami. Když to vědomí je spíše, my známe slovo vědomí, vědomě mluvit, teď právě vím, že mluvím k vám, teď vím, že mrkám, teď se rozhodnu takhle roztáhnout ruce, ano, zatleskat třeba, vědomě se rozhodnu, že budu přemýšlet nad tím, co jsem řekla, nebo se chystám říct. A kdežto podvědomě, jo, tam je i ta logika, potom logické myšlení a tak dál, skládání si věcí dohromady. Když to podvědomí je spíše, jedná se o reakce, strachy, vzorce chování, které jsou nevyzpytatelné, jsou tam někde prostě uložené, poskládané dohromady z různých koutů našeho dětství, dospívání a všeho možného. Takže to je taková ta jeho první, ta platforma, že ty dvě mysli, že jo. A nevím, jestli to přesně říkal v tomto videu, to už si nepamatuju, ale myslím si, že to říkal právě někde jinde, že máte vlastně jednoho člověka, kterého znáte velmi, velmi dobře. Za normálních okolností se chová velmi, velmi jako dobře, způsobilé. A potom najednou přijdou jiné okolnosti, například velká zima, hlad, nedostatek financí a ten člověk se úplně začne chovat jinak, jo. Nebo prostě je to, jako kdyby to byl jiná osoba. Na tom prostě není nic nenormálního nebo špatného, to tak prostě je, že jo. A nebo tu můžeme dát příklad třeba, že máme člověka, se kterým dobře vycházíme, najednou nám tam přijde třetí osoba, může to být i v partnerském vztahu například, a míchat se do toho a najednou vznikne nová dynamika a u dvou stejných nebo u dvou různých lidí ve stejné situaci dojde k jiným reakcím. Jo? Někdo zůstane klidný, jako vyrovnaný a jako bere to s nadhledem, a druhý člověk začne prostě reagovat proti té osobě, protože se mu vytváří vlastní projekce, a že ten člověk se mu chystá vzít toho druhého, nebo že ho bude chtít srazit, nebo že mu bude chtít ublížit, nebo cokoliv. A o to tu jde, jo. To je vlastně to, co je všechno poskládáno v tom podvědomí, a to všechno, co jsme nazbírali za ten život. A jak jsme třeba reagovali na nedostatek pozornosti od rodičů, jo. nebo na nějaké urážky a to se nám tam všechno někde uložilo a vytvořil se jakýsi obranný mechanismus, jakési reakce, které prostě jsou uložené v tom podvědomí. A jak říkal Kirby, a spousta lidí vlastně takhle, a my to víme, že spousta lidí jede na autopilota, jo. Jen se podívejte kolem, je tu spousta robotů, i když jsou to lidé, protože vlastně stačí, jo, mně už se tam honí v hlavě spousta obrazů a scénářů a situací. Prostě máte to, stačí si projít město a vidíte, jak ty lidi prostě stejným způsobem reagují a nemají jako otevřenou mysl. Těží tam narazíte na někoho, kdo si myslíte, že přemýšlí, že jedná vědomě. Většinou to jako jede všechno na autopilota, jo. No a takže tak to zase, když to propojíme s tím naším tady, o čem si vždycky povídáme, tak to se tomu Matrixu krásně podařilo nás takhle naprogramovat, že většina lidí si prostě zatlačila to svoje já někam daleko, hluboko, aby to nebolelo, tak prostě jedou na autopilota. No jenom, že to se potom projektuje do vztahů a do partnerských vztahů a do vztahu sama k sobě. Takže dalším takovým tím pilířem, a já se tady jenom kouknu, takže vlastně ano, takže Kirby který naznačil, že toto všechno lze přeprogramovat, tyto vzorce lze přeprogramovat. My máme také tady vědomou a podvědomou mysl, které fungují jinak. Obě dvě mají jiné cíle nebo jinačí prostě funkci nebo jinačí projevy. No a další věc, do které velmi zachází, nebo takovým tím pilířem jeho práce jsou attachment teorie, jo. Toto je úplně zásadní a to, když jsem vlastně slyšela, tak na to jsem se potom chytla a chtěla jsem, aby o tomto mluvil, protože jsme měli jenom hodinu, tak aby se více vyjádřil tady o tom attachmentu. A hned si řekneme, co to je. A ve vztahu třeba partnerství, jo, jak si vybíráme partnery vzhledem teda, když vezmeme v potaz tu teorii attachmentu. Takže on velmi tady toto hodně studoval, hodně o tom ví, protože, jak říká, celý život v tom byl namlčený. Ani on tomu neunikl. V podstatě attachment v angličtině je něco jako, že je člověk připoutaný, přivázaný, jo, attached. Někdy, jestli vidíte vlastně v těch e-mailech se někdy objeví taková ta sponka, já ji tady zrovna nikde nemám, a je tam napsaný attachment, jo, český jako příloha, jo, že něco je jakoby připnuté k tomu e-mailu. Takže ten attachment je vlastně naše takové připínání se k něčemu, k nějakým výsledkům, v tomto případě ke vztahům, že si vybíráme vlastně vztahy, které jakoby nás mají uzdravit nebo uspokojit, nahradit to, co jsme kdysi ztratili, o co jsme přišli. Takže vlastně drtivá většina vztahů, i když jsme třeba zamilovaní ze začátku, i když to tak musím říct, tak pochází vlastně z nějaké potřeby. Jo, ne úplně z čisté lásky, ale potřeby. Neříkám, že všechny, protože určitě tu existuje spoustou lidí, včetně i velmi mladých lidí, nebo že jo, pak už starších, kteří si něco zažili, tak už chtějí jenom čistou lásku, žádný attachmenty, ale i spoustu mladých lidí, kteří si tohle uvědomují a opravdu spolu jedou v té čistotě. Ale řekla bych, že to jsou spíše takové pořád světlé výjimky. Spíše si myslím, že se jedná pořád o tu většinu populace, jo. Takže když třeba měl někdo velmi, já nevím, zlého posuzujícího rodiče, tak si buď to bude, zase to záleží na jiných alternativách, na jiných, jak bych to řekla, okolnostech nebo těch niterních věcí. Takže buď to si najde člověka, který je velmi kritický, protože ten člověk se cítí v pohodě s tou energií té mámy nebo toho táty, kteří je ignorovali a kritizovali. Budete se divit, ale cítí se s tím tak v pohodě, že tohle je jim jediná známá věc. Oni neznají buď volný, buď tvořivý, buď sám sebou, to oni neznají, proto oni by se toho lekli, jo. Proto si vybírají tyto typy vztahu, kde mají podobnou energii, proto si vybírají tady zase ty kritizující partnery a těch, že není jako málo, těch je docela hodně. A nebo si naopak můžou vybrat někoho, kdo je pravý opak, jo? Že tady ta osoba pak bude mít navrch, jo? Že se cítí, že... Ale to nejsou prostě rovnoměrné vztahy, jo? Takže o tomto jsme tu vlastně mluvili. To je ten attachment. Každý si hledá prostě jakoby doplnění do toho svého celku. A na chvíli mu to funguje. Ale ne na pořád, protože pak tu máme různé ty příběhy. Já to čtu dnes denodenně. Já teda moc nečtu ty příběhy v tom mainstreamu, ale často natrefuju na příběhy, když otevřu počítače, teď jsou tam ty MSN, ty zprávičky a tak oni tam teď začali vkládat příběhy, že třeba, já nevím, celý život jsem byla, já nevím, 20 let jsem byla s mužem a úplně mi to vyhovovalo, protože on byl takový pragmatický, nevytvářel problémy, my jsme se jako nemilovali nějak, ani jsme se nedrželi za ruce, ale ona říká, mě to vyhovovalo, jo? Ona nemluví ani o něm, ona říká, mě to vyhovovalo, to byl ten tón. Protože já jsem nechtěla žádné konflikty. Vychovali jsme i děti prostě takhle striktně, nic, žádné emoce. Až jednoho dne jsme jeli do Chorvatska na dovolenou. No a tam se to všechno změnilo. Tam potom začala si všímat té krásy kolem, nějakých párů zamilovaných a začala najednou toužit vlastně po něčem víc, jo. Potom se tam hned jakoby jako my, když to vezmeme z té naší rezonanční perspektivy, tak vlastně ona už si myslím, že rezonovala předtím, proto si tohle přitáhla do života. A tam potkala prostě učitele jogy, za kterým já každý ráno chodila, ten ji učil, manžel byl doma na pokoji a oni se zamilovali a prostě každý den spolu byli úplně toto a tam to prostě pochopila, že existuje něco jiného. Takže potom dochází k těmto situacím, kdy stejně to probuzení přijde, jo? Pokud to nebyl vztah založený na lásce, jako já si vybírám tebe, já si tě vybírám a ty si zase vybíráš mě dobrovolně, potom je to založené na nějaké potřebě, tak to je vlastně ten připínáček, to je ten attachment, jo, na nějaké aby se to uzdravilo, jo. A mně se moc líbilo, jak Kirby mluvil, teď už se dostávám vlastně do toho jeho rozhovoru, tak on říkal, že prostě někdy, jak je možné, on neříká, že nevěří v zamilování a v lásku, nebo to ne, naopak. Ale pokud jste už trošičku v tom zběhlejší, už se vám to stalo víckrát, že jste se víckrát třeba zamilovali a už jste se přitom začali i zkoumat, jo, a jako co přitom cítíte. Třeba jste četli i, jak se jmenuje, no, já a jména, já vám to tady dám do popisku. No, ten biolog, jo, známý, no já jsem fakt hrozná tady v tomto. Tak on přece říkal, že vlastně zamilovanost je taková, že vlastně my se najednou uvidíme odraz sebe v tom druhém, jo, to je vlastně reflection, ten odraz a najednou se zamilujeme vlastně do sebe. To je ten líbánkový efekt, který netrvá věčně, jo. Pak najednou to všechno jakoby opadne, pak nastane normální realita a my řekneme, ježiš, co to bylo za člověka, s kým jsem to vlastně chodil, jo, protože ta chemie odteče, opadne a tak dál. No a Bruce Lipton, ano, správně. A on tam říká, Kirby, že jak jinak bychom se vysvětlili, než že to je chemie a on tomu říká trauma response, neboli odpověď na trauma, jo, response na trauma. To taky vchází z toho podvědomí, nepodvědomá reakce, že najednou potkáme nějakého člověka a během pár sekund, proto oni říkají, že zamilování dojde během pár sekund, nám v tom našem procesoru v hlavě proběhne několik myšlenek, tam proběhne velmi rychlá asociace, prostě s něčím. A najednou vzplaneme, jo, jsme schopni teda vzplanout. A úplně jsme šíleně, prostě tohle je ten člověk, to je ten pravej, už žádný jiný nebude, jo. Po roce třeba je to úplně jinak. Mimochodem, jeden z těch příběhů bylo třeba, když jsem zašla teďka, zase odbočila, to je jak čtení, prostě, tak říká, věnoval se mi 8 měsíců. 8 měsíců jsem byla středem jeho světa a najednou se všechno změnilo. Potom už se jenom začal vymlouvat. Jo? To jsou právě ty příběhy, které my už vidíme s nadhledem, protože víme prostě, že tu šlo o to, co tu teď povídáme, o tom attachmentu, o tom připnutí. Jo? Ten se připnul na ní na chvilku, trvalo to 8 měsíců, ona zase na něj a tak dál. No a ten člověk dokáže prostě úplně vzplanout, jako úplně hoří až, jo. A jak je to možné, že by se to stalo s člověkem, kterého v podstatě ani neznáte, jo? Jo, jakože my to můžeme dát i takové ty věci, jakože ano, dávná vzpomínka na dávné životy, jako samozřejmě, ale tady hraje roli tolik věcí. Ale my to konkrétně mluvíme právě o tomto, že vlastně je to, já se to tady přečtu, že to vzplanutí, co popisuje Kirby, to jsem si tady udělala poznámečku, není láska, ale trauma response, neboli jako reakce na to trauma. Něco se v člověku aktivuje, třeba dávná touha po záchraně, nebo potom, aby si ho někdo všiml, protože ten člověk třeba žije, každý člověk, on tam říkal Kirby hlavně, že každý člověk nejenom, že má na to právo, ale potřebuje být viděn, slyšen, cítěn, potvrzen. To je prostě normální v pořádku, jo. To jsou takové ty, proč tady nejseš, proč pořád chodíš pryč, proč si na mě neuděláš čas. Je to tak trochu taky takové attachment, ale je to prostě součástí toho, že člověk potřebuje být potvrzen a slyšen, validován, jo. Takže ten člověk touží potom, aby si ho někdo všiml, aby konečně zažil pocit, že to je to ono, to pravé, to je právě ono a teď už jsem do smrti zachráněný, prostě jsem našel tu pravou lásku, jo. Proto ten člověk najednou hoří, píše básně, cítí extázi úplnou, až má pocit, že spadl do ohně nebo do nějaké pohádky. Jenomže často se jedná o projekci, o obraz, který si na druhého my promítáme, jo? Protože si sami neumíme naplnit vlastní prázdnotu. No. A každý z nás to určitě zažil. Buď to z té strany, že my jsme splanuli, anebo že naopak někdo pro nás splanul a potom to dopadlo úplně katastrofálně, že jsme zjistili, že ten člověk vlastně nás potom už i zavrhnul a byl totálně úplně obrátil, jo. Tady potom už to hraničí s tou teorií toho narcisismu a víte co, těch toxických lidí. Známe to, ti vám budou mazat med kolem pusy, jak jste nádherní, jak jste božstí, jak jste úžasní a my jim věříme, protože proč bychom jim nevěřili, že? A potom vás začnou postupně jako manipulovat, až prostě vás začnou už snižovat a už z vás udělají jenom svoji hračku. Takže takhle jsme si to tu trošku projeli, to byl ten attachment, o kterém tam mluvil. A potom jsme tu řekli to trauma, ano, tak to je ten další, třetí pilíř té jeho metody. Tam on se zabývá nervovým systémem, který vlastně kolabuje, a pokud skolabuje, vede to k otupění nebo k hyperaktivaci, k disociaci a různým takovým chováním. A ve vztazích to spouští trauma ping-pong, neboli vzájemnou dysregulaci a nedorozumění. No. Takže ten hlavní vzkaz, který si z tohoto odnášíme, a pak ještě zmíníme jednu věc, která mě tam zaujala, je práce na sobě. Jo. Práce na sobě a to video, které jsem chtěla natočit, snad se mi to v brzké době podaří, tady na takovéto psychologické téma je psychologicko-spirituální možná, je to vnitřní dítě. My máme každý v sobě, já jsem se vždycky zajímala tím tématem, co to je to vnitřní dítě, co to vlastně je. Nejdřív mi to přišlo takové jako wow, my máme vnitřní dítě, pak jsem říkala, aha, a není, a co to vlastně je? A pak mě to nezajímalo, mě to přišlo jako nějaká teorie a až mě vlastně to docvaklo. Nevím, jestli se mi to podaří úplně vysvětlit, ale vnitřní dítě je někdo v nás nebo něco. Mimochodem, my máme v sobě, já nevím, jestli máme několik osobností, ale známe to. Třeba si povídáme sami se sebou, nebo najednou v nás přebere roli třeba zachránce, jo? Potom zase ten si odpočíne a potom zase třeba nějaký utěšovač, jo. Potom zase třeba flegmatik, jo. A my si říkáme, proč nejsem pořád konzistentní? Protože se v nás prostě to tak nějak mění. Já nevím, kdo to nazval, jestli Carl Jung, že máme v sobě v podstatě zahradu různých bytostí, tak to je, nebo charakterů, tak je to prostě pravda, ne, že bychom byli nějací jakoby šibnutí, to ne. A to jsou archetypy, jo. To právě se chci k tomu taky dostat, že máme v sobě mnoho archetypů, jo. No a záleží, v jaké jsme situaci. Takže to vnitřní dítě je v podstatě taková nevyjádřená část v nás, jo. Eh, Dejme tomu, že vám rodiče, to je to moje téma třeba, eh, že pardon, že vás třeba nutili do výkonu, jo. Museli jste, jako kdo, že jo, nenutil. Museli jste se učit, museli jste být samé jedničky. Museli jste domů nosit, vodit jenom ty nejlepší kamarády, jo. S určitýma dětma nebo lidma jste se ani nesměli bavit, jo. Nebo museli jste mít určité názory, které jinak by rodiče neuznali. A nebo pokud rodiče sami neměli názory, no tak třeba vám pouze ještě k tomu, nebo zároveň, jo, i nadávali, jo. Já třeba často chodím, dneska zrovna jsem šla zase přes semafor a prostě byla tam matka, která prostě zakřičela na dceru jako tak už běž, nebo něco takového, jako opravdu ošklivě, jo. A ta dcerka se bránila, jo. Prostě ti to furt říkám, no prostě víte co, kombinace tady tohoto, jakože nucení toho dítěte do něčeho, plus jakoby neuznání té osobnosti a neustálé nadávky a ponižování, tak to vede v kombinaci toho, že to dítě potlačí samo sebe. V podstatě to dítě zůstane zamrzlé a nevyjádřené a dejme tomu, že to dítě třeba chtělo, to by byl ten můj případ, na to připravuju taky video, třeba dělat malé domečky, jo. Tady já jsem vám ho už ukazovala. Jo, třeba vytvářet něco takového, jo, a to mě baví, jo, to mě baví, já dělám takovou věc, kterou vám jednou možná ukážu, prostě na větve jsem dala prostě domečky a dělám kolem toho nějakou scenérii a takové věci, to mě prostě baví. Dělám to až teď, no, dělala jsem to i dříve. Jenomže pak na to nebyl čas a potom to bylo takové to, uč se, nedělej blbosti, co děláš za blbosti, prosím tě, to tě neuživí, nebo a ty tvoje domečky, jako například, jo. To znamená, že my musíme se znovu, a to je docela dlouhý proces, začít setkávat s tím svým vnitřním dítětem. Začít, to není jako, že my si tu povídáme o Americe, Trumpovi a já nevím co a spiritualitě a nevím co, ještě všechno jsme probírali, tolik věcí, jo, vzestup, ale to vnitřní dítě je taky důležité, jo, to je prostě, my máme tolik, tolik vrstev, jo, obejmout je, zeptat se jej, co vlastně by chtělo, jo, potěšit jej, a pohladit jej vnitřně, nebo myšlenkou, nebo úsměvem, nebo slovy, nebo čímkoliv a ono nám řekne, buď to nějakým pocitem nebo nějakou myšlenkou, tak nám řekne, co by chtělo vlastně. A my mu to prostě máme dovolit, jo. Dovolit, aby se začalo projevovat, jo. Jako třeba, tak začnu dělat domečky, no a co? Začnu dělat prostě nějaký miniaturky. Teď už mi do toho nikdo nemluví. Teď už to můžu dělat. Tak já vlastně dávám zase, upřednostňuju to svoje dítě a mimo to se věnuju dalším věcem, že jo, placení složenek, práce, videa, všechno možné, ale zároveň dávám prostor i tomu dítěti, aby se realizovalo, aby prostě zjistilo, že tady je, že se může posunovat dál a když se posune to dítě, tak se posunu i já, posunete se i vy všichni. Budeme prostě, dokud ono nedostane tu lásku, tak tam bude stát v rohu a sklopené a nebude, vy se taky moc nepohnete dál, jo, to znamená vrátit se zpátky k němu, jo. Takže to jsme si řekli toto a to byly ty attachmenty, to trauma a ty dvě mysli. Takže to by bylo k tomu, co jsem chtěla okomentovat. A ještě úplně na závěr, co mě teda úplně taky fantastické, a co říkal Kirby, bylo o maminkách. Já už teď nevím, jestli na Bali nebo kde. On je teda na Bali, což je úžasné. To byl ten příběh, který mě osobně velmi, velmi fascinoval, že vlastně za covidu on procházel velmi nějakým náročným soudním procesem a vytvořil na to i video a nějaký squatter se nastěhoval do jeho domu. To je prý v Americe nějak běžné. Myslím si, že jsem o tom četla, že oni nějak něco právně prostě zmanipulují a někdo se vám nastěhuje do vašeho domu a vy s tím nic neděláte. Prostě, že se tyto věci dějí, jo. No a tak kamarádka mu řekla, že procházela jakoby rozvodem dramatickým od toxického vztahu a řekla mu, hele, nechceš se mnou jet prostě na Bali? A on říká, jo, tak OK, on byl zvyklý prostě všude jako tak jako cestovat po světě tak. A říká, že do poslední chvíle nevěděl, co to vlastně je ta Bali, až si uvědomil, jak je to krásné místo. No a pak se tam prošel, když už tam přiletěli někde v tom lese nebo v džungli, jak říkal, a tak se do toho místa zamiloval, že měl pocit, že tam je víc doma než doma. Víc doma než v Americe. A že už se nevrátil a od té doby tam zůstal, je tam a zůstal tam, už je tam 3 roky. Takže nevím, jestli toto probíhá na Bali nebo v Americe, ale říká oni, já nevím s kým to, on to jenom tak jako by zběžně říkal, že zjistilo se, že teďka se spolupracuje s nějakými, buď to jestli s rodinami nebo s nějakými institucemi, to nevím, ale bože, teď to je přece už tak dlouho známá věc, že největší záchranou pro lidstvo bude, když se lidé budou věnovat matkám. To znamená, matka se vychovává vlastně už od dětství samozřejmě, ale matka, když je v pohodě, emocionálně vyrovnaná, nemá žádný ty attachmenty, má vyčištěná traumata nebo ani žádná, ideálně nemá, tak může být tím zdravým zdrojem pro štěstí toho dítěte, protože to dítě, ať to chceme nebo ne, to v tom raném věku potřebuje. To dítě prostě potřebuje tu matku, ta je i otce, ale zřejmě více, nevím jestli více, ale tu matku. A každý vlastně to gesto, to dítě sleduje, jo. Dneska, když jsme dospělí, tak víme, jo, když maminka zaspí, nepřijde, tak to nebereme osobně si, jo. Nebo když nám něco řekne, vynadá nám, tak už bereme, jako víme, jako jo, to chápeme, maminka je taková, ale to dítě to bere doslova, jo. Jakože to je odraz jeho, že on je takový. Pokud se maminka rozčílí, tak to je jeho vina, jo. A on říkal tam ten příklad, že když se dítě třeba necítí dobře, bolí ho bříško a najednou prostě se zeptá maminky, aby přišla, aby mu ho, jako, ono si to myslí, to dítě, že ta maminka to ví, že přesně ví, co se v něm děje, tak řekne, pojď utěš mě a třeba pláče. A maminka je zrovna unavená, naštvaná, teďka zrovna, že jo, se třeba i rozvádí, nebo někdo vyhodil z práce, nebo prostě je nevyrovnaná, chce partnera, chce peníze, je prostě, necítí se dobře sama v sobě. A tak prostě vezme mobil do ruky a odejde a praskne dveřma a už prostě tomu dítěti nic nechce jakoby říct, je naštvaná i na to dítě. A v ten okamžik si to prostě to dítě interpretuje jako trauma. To je prostě trauma pro to dítě. To dítě si začne spojovat, že když mě není dobře, když mě bolí bříško a potřebuju pohladit, pomoct, tak vlastně se stane tohle. A může za to ta krabička, může za to třeba mobil, nebo za to můžou dveře, nebo cokoliv a tím pádem se mu to projeví v životě, že se třeba bojí zavírání dveří, velkých praskání dveří, takže na to reaguje úplně jinak než jiná osoba třeba, jo. Takže prostě to je tak spletité všechno, jo. Takže starat se vlastně o zdraví dětí je tak jako teda těch matek, aby byly v pohodě. A já říkám, jako když máte děti, jo, tak fakt jako usměvavá máma, vyrovnaná, co si dělá srandu a všechno, není nad to. A co dokonce umí i pohladit, pochválit. Na takovýho rodiče prostě není, no. Teda jako, to je ono, jo. Takže jo, takže to jsme tu měli takové trošku ne psycho, ale psychoanalýzu třeba, jo, jsme si tu dali, psychoterapii. A pozveme zase Kirbyho znovu. A já bych vás poprosila, jestli máte nějaké dotazy, tak se ptejte, napište je dolů pod video a mi ty dotazy, prostě stačí tady to napsat, já si je vysbírám a pozvu, já bych řekla třeba v září zase Kirbyho uděláme další rozhovor, jo? Třeba na vztahy, nebo já si myslím, že on o tom docela rád mluví, jo? Tak jo, takže posílám vám jedno velké nebo malé srdíčko. Moc už se dopředu na vás těším, moc, mám vás moc ráda. Ahojky, děcka. Nebo takhle, ahoj vaše vnitřní děti. Ahoj moje vnitřní dítě, zdraví vaše vnitřní děti. Tak jo, mějte se rádi, mějme se krásně. Ahoj, papa.